welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad that you're here. So glad that you decided to click on that button. We really appreciate your support. This will be a pretty quick video. This is just a observation video and something that just inspired me, and I wanted to come on and just share what I had observed today. I usually plant a garden. My thumbs, I don't know if they're green, but they're close to it. I enjoy gardening. I enjoy having something to take care of, and I love watching it grow. But this year, I didn't feel inspired to do a garden, and so I didn't. I had some things that I had planted last year that were like perennial in nature, things like berry plants that I've kind of just kept an eye on to see if they would produce or not. And I haven't seen much. You know, I do have animals around me, wild animals, squirrels, opossums, foxes, deer, things like that. And so, you know, I'm always in a fight with them for whatever I get, but I haven't seen too much so far this summer. But I did have some boxes on my back deck that I had planted in. I planted corn in last year and actually got some little corn, and they were really delicious. But this year I let it go fallow. There's nothing in there. And so probably I would say about 2 months ago, sometime late May, maybe early June, I was cutting some peppers in the kitchen, and I just took the whole stalk of peppers, the pepper seeds from the peppers, and just stuck them into my garden bed out there, the raised garden bed on the back deck. And I put some other things out there, just as I would be cutting things and having seeds. I would just stick it in the ground. So I engaged in what I call haphazard gardening. Whatever seeds I had some potatoes that had developed eyes, so I just stuck them in there, and they actually grew, and I got a potato harvest. I planted some wildflowers out there, and the hummingbirds and the bees and the butterflies are really loving those. So just haphazard gardening, I would call it. I have some herbs out there as well. Well, in the garden bed, I had peppers beginning to grow from the peppers that I had planted out there. And alongside the peppers, something that I did not recognize. And it was growing along with the peppers. So I said, well, let's let it grow and see what it is. Maybe I planted something there and I forgot what it was. Since I was trying to figure out what it was, I couldn't figure it out. So I said, let's let it grow for a little while longer. So it was growing alongside the pepper plant, and I thought for a while there that it was another pepper plant. So I let it grow, and then it started to really bother me because the pepper plants are now starting to put on fruit. You can see the little tiny pepper plants. You can see the little flowers that are leading to little baby peppers. Such an exciting time when you actually bear some fruit. But the other plant, I don't really see any fruit on it. I just see the leaves. They're really nice and green and pretty, and you could tell it's really nicely watered. My pepper plant, by the way, looks like it's in need of water, but this plant looks really well watered. And the nature of the stalks on this plant is that it's like translucent, and you can see that there's water in it. I actually pulled off one of the branches and was able to wring out water from one of the branches because it's so well watered. And curiosity got the best of me today. I was like, I will find out what this is. So I took a picture of it, and then I downloaded this app that helps you to identify plants. And come to find out that this is called a Canadian weed flower. Or a weed plant or something of that nature. I'll put it on the screen exactly what it is. And I couldn't believe it. I said, I've been nurturing, and because once it started to grow, I try to take care of things. So I was watering it every day. I was fertilizing it. I was doing everything. I was making sure it got plenty of sun. I was doing everything that I could to make sure it grew once it was planted. And I was doing that for that plant and for the peppers along in the same box next to it. And so my pepper plant was struggling a little bit, probably losing resources to this weed that was growing alongside it. Now, I looked up the weed and the plant, and it does have some beneficial qualities. It turns out that it's good for inflammation. It can be made into a poultice, and it's good for inflammation. And you can actually eat it. It says that you can saute it. It kind of tastes like spinach. Goes good with eggs, it says. But I don't think I want to be eating that. It doesn't look very edible to me. But it just it just made me think after I pulled them out, because I actually went out today and pulled them out. And it made me think I was nurturing something in the garden of my back deck that was never going to produce fruit. I was waiting for it to produce fruit, but it was never going to. But instead, it was starting to take over the box, and it was growing so prolifically, it was starting to crowd out the plant in there that was actually beginning to put on fruit. And that reminded me of just life in general, and how so many times we have things in our lives that we think are good. They look good, they're pretty, they're bushy, they're green, lusciously green. And we think any day now, this thing's going to put on fruit. Any day now, this is going to produce. We're going to get a harvest. And it was never designed to produce fruit because it's a weed. We've got weedy relationships. We've got weedy habits. We've got weeds in the garden of our heart. We've got weedy intentions. We've got weedy exercises. The way we spend our money, the way we spend our time, the way we neglect the things that are important. All weeds. And as I was examining this, it just kind of made me sad a little bit as I thought about how I nurtured that weed in my garden to the neglect, just by virtue of the fact that resources were going to this weed, to the neglect of the peppers that are actually beginning to put on fruit. And it reminded me of the parable that Messiah talked about the wheat and the tares. And the wheat and the tares, they're growing up together. At first, I could not tell what this plant was. It was growing up right next to the peppers, and I thought, maybe it's a pepper plant. They were growing up and growing up and growing up. But once they began to mature and the pepper plant began to put on fruit, then I could tell this is not a pepper plant. I could tell of what sort it was and was able to determine that it indeed is a weed and not a pepper plant. So this is the time that we're in right now. Weeds and fruitful things are beginning to ripen on the vine. And it's only until they ripen that you can see what sort it is. There is wickedness and evil in this world to the degree that we've never seen. I know I've never seen in my lifetime. Because wicked fruit is ripening on the vine. Righteousness is ripening on the vine. And we're beginning to see what sort people are. We're beginning to see what sort governments are. We're beginning to see what sort organizations are, and companies, and television stations, and things of that nature. And everything in society is beginning to show and reveal what it is by its fruit or the lack thereof. When the Father sends Messiah, He's after that precious fruit of righteousness that can be enjoyed and eaten and is a delight to the nostrils and to the eyes of the Father. He's after that precious fruit. He's not after weeds. He's not after things that pretend to be bushy fig trees but don't put on any fruit. The first time Messiah came, Israel was described as a fig tree that was bushy, but had not produced fruit. The Torah says if you have a tree that hasn't produced for 4 years, in that 5th year, you can cut it down. You can get rid of it. I believe it's the 5th year. Could be the 6th, but I believe it's the 5th year. Torah says when you move into a land, for example, when the children of Israel moved into the land, the promised land where the Canaanites dwelled, they were not to eat any fruit from the tree for 4 years. It was the 5th year that they were able to then partake of the tree and eat from it. All the previous years were to be considered unclean. And then the 4th year was devoted into the Most High, I believe. And then the 5th year, they're able to partake. And so from the 5th year, going and so on and so forth, they could expect to eat from the tree. Well, if the tree does not produce fruit after the 5th year or the 6th year or the 7th year, then whomever owns the tree has the right to cut that tree down since it's not producing fruit. And so Messiah said to our ancestors and to Israel at that time, your house is left unto you desolate because you are not producing any fruit. There's no fruit of righteousness here. Okay? Not much. And the ones that were faithful, the Most High took care of them, as He always does. Well, once again, brothers and sisters, we're about to see a reckoning. The Father is sending Messiah when He comes for that precious fruit. And just because we're scattered, Just because we're in a land of our captivity does not mean that the Father does not expect fruit, because His Holy Spirit, the things that enlivens us and the thing that makes us whole and the things that makes us able to produce fruit is with us in our captivity. He never really left us. He turned His face for but a moment. But He's expecting fruit. He's expecting prayerfulness. He's expecting fasting. He's expecting turning away from sin. He's expecting us to keep Torah in our hearts by the power of the Ruach. He's expecting that. He's coming for precious fruit. He's sending for His children to gather us back into our land. And He wants the fruitful, not the fruitless. So don't let your life be like my garden bed, entertaining weeds that look really pretty, but were never designed to produce any fruit. So, I pray that this has blessed you today. It blessed me as I realized that it's so easy in our lives to entertain things that don't profit, that have nothing to offer. Nothing. The Most High is faithful. He is true. And He is going to gather His children home. But He's not after the rebels. He'll deal with the rebels. So don't be a rebel. Don't be a rebel. And as I've been saying in all my other videos recently, please prepare. Please prepare for the times ahead. If you haven't planted a garden, make sure that you're putting away food. If you can some food. If you have canned goods, if you have room for canned goods, put some canned goods away. You know, get some canned tuna. Get some things, some rice, some beans. Put some things away. Get some water. Put some water away. Be prepared. Be like the wise ant. It's summer, but winter's coming. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for joining me once again. Thank you very much. And I pray that you have a blessed day. I pray that the Most High makes His face to shine upon you. I pray that He grants you peace. And I pray that we will all be fruitful vines, suitable for the Most High's use. In Yahushua's name I pray. Amen and amen and amen. Shalom.